Hello, everyone, and welcome to Day 9 of the Toronto International Film Festival. My name is Lauren Clarke. I'm a programming associate here at Tiff, and it is my great honor to introduce this evening's screening of Darlene Naponse's Stellar. I would like to thank our lead and major sponsors, Bell, RBC, Bulgari, and Visa for their continued support. And further thanks go to our major supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto for their continued support. This film plays as part of the Contemporary World Cinema Program, which is generously supported by Sun Life. And this film is eligible for the Amplify Voices Award presented by Canada Goose. And of course, it's also eligible for the People's Choice Award. And you can vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And we would like to thank Level Film for providing us with this film. Go Level Film. Stellar is the latest film from Anishinaabe director Darlene Naponse. Her features include Cradle Song and Every Emotion Costs, and she last came to the festival in 2018 with her drama Falls Around Her, starring the legendary Tantoo Cardinal. Stellar is a little different, focusing on the dreamy romantic connection of two people, played by Elle-Máijá Tailfeathers and Braeden Clarke, who meet who meet in a bar in Northern Ontario on what turns out to be a fairly remarkable night. Please join me in welcoming Darlene Naponse.
Oh, thank you. Hello. I'm really honored to be here. I am, when you make something, especially when you make something in such a, I live and work out of my community and in Northern Ontario and Eclectic, so when you finally get it finished and you get to premiere it somewhere like TIFF, it's a real honor. And so I want to thank everybody at TIFF for bringing us to tonight and that premiere on Sunday. And it's quite an honor. And there's a few crew in here, so thank you everybody for coming. Yeah, Stellar is like this beautiful love story, and I want everybody to just like breathe it in and just really appreciate where connection can lead us. And looking forward to talk to you after.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Please welcome the producer, Jennifer Weiss, and writer-director, Darlene Naponse.
Following you.
Yeah, no, I forced her on screen.
Darlene. This is Darlene's film.
Thank you. Miigwech.
Darlene, I'll start off with a few questions, then we'll take some from
Okay.
the audience. I'm wondering if you could just talk to us about the inspiration for this story. But also, it's such a bold and daring film, and you're taking risks. I'm wondering what gaps in. There's been a huge wave of Indigenous storytelling the last several years, which has been fantastic. But I feel you're doing something different here, and you're filling in some gaps that aren't there yet. And I'm wondering if you can just talk about that.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot in in our history of Indigenous cinema, but there's been so many amazing filmmakers that have brought forward films, and I'm always so grateful because I would never be here without seeing the early works of Shelley Nero and Alanis and just all of this amazing work. And then for me it was I love cinema and I love films and I love just having that screen filled with the imagery that I see at home, but also the magical kind of world that is that we can create and we live in. So I think Stellar was born from that, and the idea of that there's a certain narrative, that sometimes funders and everybody wants out of Indigenous cinema, and we did not want to go there. And I was really lucky to have producers who supported that we were going to go push outside of those barriers and outside of that. And so like Jennifer Weiss and Paula Devonshire, who just helped kind of craft that experience and that we could create, and that so Stellar could be like kind of born from that and an experiment, because it's it would literally on the script is this like a two people in a bar trying to connect while the world falls apart.
I'm wondering, could you talk to us about some of your cinematic influences for this film? Because, visually, stylistically, you're doing some very daring, you're taking risks here. And, it's quite incredible what we're seeing. It's so stimulating and engaging. I wonder if you just talk about who your influences were for this particular film.
Yeah, we went through, watched a lot of films. I'm always a huge fan of... I'm still a huge fan of like Bergman and French New Wave, and but then also like we watched Red Desert and just these but a lot of films that took place in small little spaces, even Hitchcock. Like how does a camera move in these small spaces, and how do you make this space? You know what I mean? And but also I think too is allowing the actors to give them, so that it's not just a camera that is just like placed in front of them and they're in a square, but it's like how do you move along? And so within that within the cinematographer is that we talked about like the rules of like what we had. This is like we didn't move to behind the bar until a certain point. We didn't. We only used certain lenses on certain cast. There was a certain color that came in and out throughout the film, and sometimes you wouldn't see that color, kind of like those tones early. We couldn't, in the design with Sage Paul, there was we said there was certain colors that we would want to use, but certain colors we stayed away from. So in like you never see green in anything until the moments when you see green. And so, you never saw a light of shining kind of through until those moments of that dawn and that. So we created that aesthetic and that tone that like flowed through the film.
That's great. And Jennifer, I want to bring you in. If you can talk to us. I mean, you've made so many films of varying degrees and genres. And talk to us about why did you want to champion Darlene here? And what was the collaboration like between the two of you working on this?
Well, I had the privilege of working with Darlene on Falls Around Her, and got to know her, and I felt very grateful and honored that she sort of let me into her world, and I feel, I'm kind of emotional about it because she just taught me so much that I feel like I didn't learn growing up in this country, and there's a huge void for me, and I feel little by little I'm learning a little bit more about our history, and very grateful for Darlene to allow me a little space in that. But really for this script, it was it's her writing, like draws you right in. It's just beautiful, and it's like singular and articulate, and I think the pandemic had started, and I read this script and went, well, touch and connection. I think we could all use a little of that right now, and a lot of light and love, and but really, I think Darlene as a writer is exceptional, and I think she's just growing more and more as a filmmaker, and it was really a privilege to be by her side and quite creatively collaborative, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out this beast, because it was challenging at times. Yeah.
We'll open it up to the audience for some questions. Yeah, in the front here. Yeah, can you talk about the writing process and if there were any limitations and just how you went about it, maybe structurally as well?
Mm-hmm. So the story started from a short story that I wrote, and I was really wanting to try to connect these two people. And I think in my life I wanted to connect. My relationship was starting to fail, and I was trying to understand everything that comes at two people when they're trying to connect. And so that's where Stellar started. But it was also around the meteorite that has fallen to the earth a billion years ago in my area, and then it created this really rich, and that's what kind of you go through that process of the meteorite falling, and it created this really rich base of iron and ore. So we have over 100 years of mining in our area, and that's always a backdrop of a lot of my stories. And so I was just combining those two. But then when I started to think about it as a film, it was interesting because it's like I knew that it was like kind of like this small kind of like budget, still thinking in that mode where it's like, oh, okay, well, if we have like if we build a bar and then all of this can happen around it, and then allowing those storms and that fire and all of that to happen visually around them. And it wasn't, and some of it that is on screen, it was a little bit different in the script. It was a little bit harder and around the sexuality and the sex. And what happened is that it became, when we started bringing all the characters in and all of everybody starting to work together, there was like this sense of beauty that we really wanted to, and just that love. And so it didn't necessarily have to be so in that way. Yeah.
So, hand up here. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the patron talking about some aspects of the dialogue specific and concrete, while others maybe abstract. Wondering if you can talk about that creative decision.
Yeah, I just love, I love poetry. So I don't think of myself as a poet, but I love poetry. So I always kind of move towards that area. And I think, when two people kind of connect and find themselves in a way, that poetry comes and those moments happen, right? And so I wanted those two characters to have that space, but also to be brave to feel that. And in a world where we're so historically as Indigenous people, there's been so much taken from us. And when we talk about love and we know that the love is there, and we know that that's strength in our love, but we have been, a lot has happened in our families where mothers are taken, children are taken, and so families don't grow up together. And so that idea of touch and just all of that, how to be gentle and how to be kind to each other, we're relearning that. And so I really wanted to be able to allow these two characters to find their own truths within that, and let that pain of their histories, but that kind of like just really let love exist, and connection and beauty, and within the poetry, within the visuals, and within their dialogue, and their very sparse dialogue together.
Yes, over here.
Yeah. So so when we were shooting, it was the day that Tina and Billy came in, to Tina Keeper and Billy, the aunties. Yeah. We also had ceremony for the graves, and then for the when they found the mass graves, and the beginning, the first one that we all knew. But it was weird because it was like we knew this history, but it was so hard to hear it, and so we all came together and we did ceremony with that. And so our knowledge keeper brought us all the ribbon, and so that we could remember our histories. My father went to residential school. Their grandfather and their grandmother went to residential school. So we were come together within that and brought ceremony to our people. And it was a really hard day. It was a really, really, really hard day. And to have that, just the, the strength from our brothers and sisters from, you know what I mean, outside of our communities to be there and just to respectfully, just be with us within honoring our people.
Questions? Yeah, in the back there. You, yeah. Can you talk about the natural elements that are featured in the film, and then also the creative decision of that shot that the patron's describing for the movie poster?
Yeah. So the natural is just all that's on my community. That's what we see every day, and I wanted to our imagery. We were very precise within the imagery that was brought into the film. It wasn't anything outside of Northern Ontario. It was all just like within our area, and even within the stock footage and that, like there was times where we tried different things. And we're like, so we just like simplified everything. And so for
Darlene went out with her camera quite a bit during the post-production. And we just go and shoot random stuff, and you see a lot of it in the film, which ended up being quite beautiful, I have to say.
Yes, and then bringing bringing all of that together. So there was a lot of things. The imagery, I don't know, we chose a lot of images and kind of just it's hard to promote because you're so much into the making of it. So when you start promoting it and thinking how you're going to promote it, it's really difficult. But I want to also shout out to Stephen Sangster, who is like when we're talking about these images that were brought into the window. Stephen was the artist who special effects, and that was because we made that decision so late at the game, like a day before we started shooting, that this would be a green window, and he magically created that world with us.
Got time for a couple more. Oh, sorry, I can't see it. Go ahead. Patron asking about any influences from live theater.
No, it's so strange. I don't have any experience in theater, and I have, and it just became, it felt like very much of a play. And it was just weirdly how everything came together. I think structurally, I wanted to always let the camera kind of be a character in some sense too, and then so having her naturally just turn and talk to the camera was just allowing those moments to happen. So, but to bring RH, when RH comes in and the professor, and he's just like those moments where he just walks in. So it was like we had to like figure out how to make it feel natural, and I think that's where that theatrical sense really kind of like we were able to go into that world.
Jennifer, Darlene, on behalf of Tiff and Toronto, thank you so much for bringing
you.
Stellar
Thank
to our audiences. Everybody, Darlene Naponse, Jennifer Weiss, please vote for the film when you leave the cinema, and have a great evening.
Thank you.